Today's daily reading brings us to Ezra chapters 7 and chapters 8. And before I get into this, I just want to let you in on a note if you haven't seen it. If you go to the description of these videos, you will see how I have the chapters broken down, by sections. And so that might help you as well. I don't know if you've seen that yet or not, but they're there. So that being said, let's get on with our studies today. So chapter 7 and 8, now we see the introduction of Ezra. Ezra, up to this point, has not been he's not been one of the ones that have went back to Jerusalem yet. But now, chapter 7 is detailing his return, and it's several years later. You have the reign of Darius, and now you're into the reign of Artaxerxes, which is many years later. I did not look up how many years that is. Maybe I can add that. But either way, this is several years later. Now this is the introduction of Ezra, the scribe, the priest that is going to Jerusalem. We see his reason there in verse number 10. But we see the first 10 verses, Ezra is traveling to Jerusalem. And then verses 11 through 26 is the letter that Artaxerxes, the king, gives to Ezra. And there's all kinds of good stuff in there that leads you to verses 27 and 28, and that is Ezra praising God for what he had done in the heart of Artaxerxes, the king, that allowed him to go back full and be a blessing unto the people. Chapter 8 begins with the first 14 verses detailing all of those that are coming from Babylon and moving back unto the promised land. And then in verse number 15 through 23, we see that they didn't get far, and they realized that they're going to seek God's face for protection. They told the king, hey, we don't need any of your guard. God is good upon us, and he will take care of us. And so they sat and they fasted and prayed that God would protect them, and he did. So you see that there. And then verses 24 through 30, you have the priests are commissioned to take care of the treasury. And in verses 31 through 36 is their arrival in Jerusalem, what they did when they arrived. And so just for a couple takeaways, it was a 5-month trip. It took them 5 months to get from there in Babylon up to Jerusalem. And again, Babylon's over there in the Iran area. And so it was quite a trip for them to go, to pick up and move all the households to go back into the land that God has promised them. And I love the way it says here, Ezra's intentions in verse number 10. It says, verse of chapter 7, for Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the law of the Lord and to do it and to teach in Israel statutes and judgments. And there's two things I want you to notice about that one verse. Number one, this is the correct order. You have to first seek, and then you have to do before you can teach. And this is the complete order. You can't teach until you first saw it, until you first experienced. You can't become a teacher until then. So that's the correct order, and then it is a complete order. We as Christians, we can't just seek God, and we can't just do, but we need to move forward, and that is to teach and to train others, because there is someone, I promise you this, someone in your life that's looking up to you, someone in your life that's looking to you, and you have the ability to teach them. But first you have to seek, and then you have to do, therefore you can teach. And so, and then lastly, we see in verse number 36, the last verse of the chapter 8, it says this, and they delivered the king's commissions and the king's lieutenants and the governors on this side of the river, and they furthered the people and the house of God. It was a sacrifice for these people to pick up and move everything to go back to the land in which God had promised them. But it was good. And the reason they did it was because it was a furtherance for the people and the house of God. Listen, we may do things in this life and it may come at a cost, and it might be a struggle. It might be difficult, but we should be doing it to further the people and to the house of God. So that's our study for today. Hope it's been a blessing to you. God bless. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.